Good afternoon and welcome to this special little chat that I'm having here with Big Al. This gave me the idea, I was having that chat with Zohan the other week, that maybe Big Al does sessions pretty much every week, likewise to Shelley and Maverick and Beamer, and actually just to have a little series of chats with each one of them. So we're going to kick things off here with Big Al, who's on the mic with me here. And then in this little series, we will I'll have a chat with Shelley at some Shelley as well, and Beamer as well, and you never know, I might even be able to pin Maverick down at some point as well. But Big Al, first up, thanks for coming back on and doing something a little bit different again.
Oh, that's my pleasure anytime. Always look forward to it.
Well, you say that, but so I thought that what would be quite nice is, although you're doing regular sessions, for us to just talk a little bit about, and I know that you're always talking about your own experiences, but let's just have a general chat. So, at the moment, how are you finding the markets over the last, let's say, I don't know, few months? How are you finding them? What are the things that you're finding as being, good, bad, indifferent, challenging?
Yeah, well,
You say.
I mean, to be fair, I do find them they are challenging at the moment. You get into trades, and just as you think you could be off somewhere, and then it does the opposite. But you've just got to put up with these things. I think I've seen it so many times now that I often I'll go into a new year and then maybe it either starts off very well or very
Yeah.
bad, and so you just see it time and time again. But I mean, it doesn't stay like it forever. I mean, the markets will eventually get going, but I mean, with me, I'm quite a stubborn sort of trader, and once I've sort of got my analysis with something, I I will keep going at it, sort of like in that direction until I'm really sort of feel I'm proven wrong.
Yeah.
A lot of the time, I think, am I mad? I was only sort of saying a similar thing about a week ago when I was still just picking away, getting in it on that euro down in the low 106s, and I said maybe I'm mad, but I just have to put something in here just a bit, just in case it does go.
Mm.
But I mean, the thing is, eventually you do hook up on the right side of it, things, but then it's all about running it, isn't it? But it is difficult. It can be difficult and challenging at the moment. But that's the way the markets go, I suppose, isn't it?
Well, it's interesting that you said I'm just that you're quite stubborn because
Mm.
I'm similar in a way. The like you said, once you've got your teeth into a piece of analysis, then you don't really want to let it go.
Mm.
And that's not a bad thing; it's a good thing to want
Yeah.
to stay with something. And you're absolutely right. It's interesting what you just said there. Bearing in mind, we are recording this
Mm.
um, last Tuesday. So we are recording this. So as you can see, this is
Yeah.
just Tuesday's bar here for those of you who are watching along here. And so Big Al and I obviously don't know where the euro is going to be at the point when you're all watching this. But so Big Al, you're talking about having a little bit of an edging in down here on the euro.
Yeah.
Was that
I mean,
because of the
well,
weekly
obviously
100?
we'd
What
come.
was the?
We'd come down, and I got stopped out on some positions that I was in anyway on the long side, and but I still, looking at the higher time frame, still, although it looked pretty ugly and it was all coming down. If I went up to the quarterly chart, we were still within those quarterly bands, but they're not going down to the monthly. At that point,
Mm,
it was looking like it was going to completely roll over. But then we started doing some divergences on lower. It was much lower time frames. It's probably like the hourly, 2 hourly type things, and and then I just wanted to get that little bit in, even though felt that I was probably 80% likely to get stopped out on it. I just wanted that little bit in, just in case I was wrong and it did come up. I mean, obviously, there's going to come a time when you think, well, I've just got to say, no, it is. I'm completely wrong. But I mean, the divergences are still there on the likes of the quarterly time frame. I mean, obviously it's been chopping about in there for the last year or whatever, and so my analysis is still there at the moment. I mean, obviously I'd rather they weren't just chopping about sideways within those bands, but until we sort of start getting down, sort of getting out of them, I'll probably still be picking away on the long side, just trying to hook up.
Yeah. And I think you made a very salient point there as well. The point is, what you're doing there, is fine, having nibbles, getting stopped out, having a little bit of a run, then it rolls over and stops out.
Mm,
Obviously, obviously that's exactly what's going on with me. And but the point is, when it does hook up, that's where the money's made.
yeah.
And all right, it can be, frustrating at times when it's not,
Mm,
and you're still unsure as to whether it's going to hook up or it's just going to roll over again. But the point is, once you get your teeth into something, then you will hold it, and it's that holding, the road less traveled, as we talk about,
yeah.
that is hard for a lot of traders, but that's where the money's made, and it pays for the losses and some,
Mm.
doesn't it?
Yeah, of course it does. But I mean, I think for a lot of traders, it's very easy to think back of previous times. And for instance, when we had that good run up until on the 28th of December when that
Yeah,
rolled over,
yeah,
I would imagine a lot of people would have been up quite nicely at
yeah,
that point. And
yeah.
and then but then a lot of people they might hook up, get into a bit of profit, and then they think back, think, oh, I was up all this back on the 28th of December, it just completely rolled over. Oh, I'll have it now. But the problem is you start doing that, and then you never will get the big runs. And it'll
Well,
outweigh things, won't it? It's
this is what I love about the market. The market just
mm,
pushes those buttons. It does allow you these
yeah,
times, these periods when it feels, I have to be careful with my words here, but it feels a lot more effortless, shall we say, where
yeah,
things are just clicking and it just work. And then you get those times when the market will challenge your overall approach, and
mm,
it's almost like the market is deliberately trying to provoke self-doubt in you at that
mm,
time, so that when you do hook up into that very trade, you
yeah.
get 3R up and you're like, oh, I think I'll bank it.
Yeah, but it's surprising that although you've been go through these situations so many times, when you are going sideways or downhill a bit, or you're having a bit of a drawdown, maybe it's so easy to be hard on yourself and think, "Oh, I don't know what I'm doing," and it's all going downhill from here on. And even though you know that you've been in these situations so many times, but you just have to brush it all aside and just remember those times when it has all sort of worked out. And I mean, we all trade in different ways. I mean, not everyone has to run things for hundreds of
No.
pips and stuff
Yeah.
like that. I mean, people trade in all sorts of different ways. I mean, even with me, I mean, I tend to find that with things like, for instance, like the euro, it's something that with euro I trade more than anything else. But with the trades on the euro, it tends to be much bigger term things that I'm doing. Whereas then every now and then I might see something else, and I'll run it for a shorter period of time. And when I say a shorter period of time, I'm not on about so much day trading or sitting there clicking buttons all the time. I mean, it's still swing trading, but it might be something that I'm looking to be more sort of a week or something. And
Yeah.
those sort of trades are ones where I am more likely to really like what I see, and it is a case of I stick it on there, I put a stop loss there, and I got a target there. And whereas with like my longer term stuff, it's I'm trying to edge in and hook up and then add to them.
Mm.
But it's not that I really these days go looking for things. It's more every now and then something jumps out at me. I mean, for instance, I back in January time, I think I did a session in the room. It was a Canadian news one or something. And so I thought, well, being as it was Canadian news, I ought to really have a look at Canadian pears. And so I didn't have a clue what they were doing, but I went through all of the Canadian pairs, and then I noticed all those divergences on the weekly time frame of
Oh yeah.
CAD Swiss.
Mm.
And so that was something that instantly jumped out on me, and I just loved the look of it, and I just had to. So felt like that was one of those ones where I just had to put a trade on. Whereas otherwise, if I hadn't been doing that session in the room, I wouldn't have noticed that in a million years. I wouldn't have looked at a pair like that. But then again, saying that, I always remember years ago I used to have a few ones on the CAD Swiss sometimes that tended to, to work out quite well. But yeah, as I say, and I got back down in that end of January. Um, so I don't know, was it in the 64s or something? Yeah, I think it was in the 64s. But I mean, I don't mind. Although I'm basically just looking for that weekly 100 moving average. I don't mind sitting in that forever and a day because you get getting positive swaps off of it. So there's certain things with
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, especially like the likes of that lemon short dollar yen and stuff. I always remember the last
Oh right.
year, I was short dollar yen, and the amount of I remember it. It was on that day when it had that massive move, about 600. I think it was that day, that massive bar that went down several hundred pips back. It must have been in November-ish sort of time. I think it was that back over to the left a bit more.
Of last year. Oh,
Yeah, a bit further over. I think, yeah, about November time.
here. It was just
Yeah,
I
I
had it on
think
a
yeah,
weekly. Yeah.
yeah, I think it was that one. And then that hit come out I think around near where that daily 200 was. But the amount that was eaten into my profits by all those swaps, it was unbelievable. So it's not really something I want to be holding for too long. So you do have to keep an eye on things like that with the
Yeah,
swaps
you're
and stuff.
right.
I mean, I know you say it's a part of it's a cost of trading, which I completely agree with. But sometimes you have to be a little
Well,
bit
some
wary
costs are
of
higher than
it.
others, yes.
Yeah, and that's
Like the
that
dollar yen, yeah.
yeah, that certainly was. But at the moment, I'm a bit sort of wary of that market.
Yeah.
Of course, you could end up in an amazing trade off of it, but for the moment, I'm just sort of sitting there and admiring it. And it was like when they well, it looked like they intervened yesterday,
Mm.
and I think, oh, and did it do anything to the euro trade? Not really, nothing at all, did it? But I was
No,
hoping,
yeah.
I was hoping that
Yeah. Bit
a nice
more.
big sell off, it would have done something, but it
Yeah.
probably moved
Didn't
about
do a
five
lot.
pips.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I just want to come back to something you just said about uh how when things it doesn't matter how long you've been trading, that you're going to go through those periods where you just feel like, oh god, I'm not getting anywhere. and
yeah.
and how do you, and like you said, you have to just dust yourself off. Yeah, exactly.
Mm.
But how do you go through the process of dusting yourself off? How do you deal with that when you have that little bit of self-doubt? You're like, god, I can't catch a cold right now. How
Well,
do you make it easier on yourself to, you know,
well, to be honest, all I can really do is go and look back and think about previous like years and stuff I've been
periods?
in. I
Yeah,
can I can look at nearly any year and see it's like
yeah,
last year I think by I think I was up a bit in March, and then I had a couple a losing month in April, so and I'm sure that by May I was up about 2% or something. And I thought, oh, well, I'm up 2% by the fifth month, and so I'm thinking, oh, if I'm lucky, I might make 6 or 7%. Yet the
yeah,
year ended on 48%, which is
yeah.
basically 5% a
Incredible.
month. So
Yeah,
it just shows that you just never know how it's gonna work out, and quite often there's no point being hard on yourself. You start being too hard on yourself, which is easy to do. I think we all do it, myself included. Um, but you're going to hinder your own performance in a way, because then you're more likely to think, oh, perhaps I shouldn't go into that, or perhaps I should go into that because I need to try and get the percentages back up, and so then you're trading based on results, good or bad,
Mm.
rather than trading on what is actually happening. But I find I'm better served just doing a bit here and there and not trading as much. I can look back at years when I used to trade loads, and it didn't really do me any favors at all.
No, no, often doesn't. It's funny, yeah, it often doesn't. Sometimes I've noticed when I do the challenges, I've gone through years where I've traded a lot more,
Mm,
and actually I can look back and think, could I have made more if I'd have traded a bit
yeah.
less? But then, the flip side is that I would have missed out on some of the moves,
Yeah, well, that's
But
it. I
yeah,
mean, I don't like to label myself one way or the other, saying, "Oh, I only do long-term swing trades, or I only do this or that." I mean, the reality is, yeah, that's what I mainly do, unless something jumps out at me. But there are times when, and the markets could be moving, and then I'll trade a lot more. And again, I'm not
mhm.
saying that I'm sitting there day trading all the time or anything like that, but I am trading a lot more than what I normally am. And the
Yes,
reason for that is the opportunity is there. I mean, even like come middle of last year, I think it was, I even had a fair few trades on oil, and I very rarely trade oil. But on the whole, I mainly stick to like the majors really. Um, I don't really do a vast amount of things on other things, even though I do have a couple of
well,
crosshairs on at the moment. But
yeah, I mean, the what was I going to say there? Yeah, I mean, and it does vary based on volatility. We
yeah,
tend to find that we trade generally a bit less when the markets are quieter. Like, the first quarter of this year, there was a lot of very small range days in
yeah,
in the currencies, and then volatility picks up, and you naturally find that your trade frequency picks up along with volatility. Really.
yeah. Yeah, I find it just sort of happens without me even realizing. But I do find, of course, I think we all want to sort of be in trades, and it is frustrating when things are going sideways. But for the sake of you clicking a button, you think, is it worth it? It's like you say about, sitting on your hands, and cash is a position type thing and stuff like that. And it's all true. It's better to sit there and make nothing than click away just because you're frustrated and lose money, isn't it? So it's
Well, yeah.
uh,
Um, well, you're right. I mean, for a lot of the time, yes, and it's especially when there's low volatility and
yeah,
things are
yeah.
quiet. Yeah, but so coming back to some of the other things that you're doing. So yes, you've got your bigger picture analysis, but you still have those sort of, when they come along, bread and butter type trades as well, where you're not going to try and hold it for 2 months. You are only going to hold maybe for a week or two. So you will
Yeah.
have those bread and butter type trades as well. So how do you define what you want to have as a bread and butter sort of in and out, if you will, trade that you might only be in for a week or so? Um,
Well, I mean, if I looked at something that wasn't something I normally looked at, like it, well, whatever market, it doesn't matter. But if it's something I haven't really done big sort of analysis on, and then I looked at it and I saw that maybe there was this divergence into some support, and then I looked at the higher time frames quickly, and I could see potential for something, then maybe I thought, right, okay, this is all setting up in a nice way. I'd like to try and run that to the 100 moving average or the 50 moving average or whatever. They're the kind of things that I would be more likely to sort of go in, uh like close inside the band type thing, and try and run it to the 50, 100 moving average, and that's it. Whereas things like things that I'm looking at all the time, like the euro, it's a constant trade in a way.
Yes.
Like it's just constant. I'll be there trying to get away on that long side, for instance, at the moment, and I will pick away and pick away and pick away at that. And then if it does go my way, I will trade it until it gets to an area, and then I'll be losing and losing and losing, trying to get on the short side, and then I'll hook up on the short side. And
Yeah.
well, you might be lucky, but you tend to find, when you get into those points where you think there could be a turn, then that's when you are likely to have a few stop outs.
Mm.
But and then, as I say, it's just sort of hooking up with them. But then occasionally, I say occasionally, but I mean things like the Euro, for instance. I mean, we can all look at it and think, okay, there's that quarterly divergence, and usually you see a divergence, you want to run it to the 50 or 100 or whatever. But then there were so many different levels, which I think you'd have been daft not to sort of take, unless you want to sit in the trade for a couple of years. It's that there are levels. I mean, first you're just looking, oh, okay, well, maybe taking money at the quarterly band, then maybe the monthly 50, and then quarterly 20 or whatever. And so there's all these different levels. You can still sort of go in and maybe come out with part or all at these positions and then see what happens, then look to maybe getting back in again. Because I mean that is obviously a very sort of high time frame. And I
Yeah.
personally don't want to be sat in a trade for a year as much as I don't mind longer term sort of swing trading. I'd rather it was you know
Mm.
a month or two or something. But as I say, I just things I don't look at. They're more like as much there, but they're the ones. If I see a good opportunity, I'm more likely to be doing what I see where I think that will go, which is usually something that isn't gonna take forever to get there. Because it'd be more likely a setup off maybe the daily time frame or something.
So if the nice thing is this recording isn't going out until next week. So like I've already said, so you and I don't know where this euro is going to be by the time this recording is played in the room. So if the euro rolls over, let's just play devil's advocate and say,
Mm.
okay, all of these currencies completely roll over. We get to the end of this week. We've got non-farm payrolls coming up. They all come out hot, hotter than one of your favorite curries. And the euros, you know, approaching back down to that 106 area.
Yeah.
What's your plan?
Right. First of all, I won't just if that breaches 106, I won't then send all of a sudden think, oh no, I was wrong. I'm getting on the short side because then
Yep.
I'll be looking at
Divergences. Yeah.
divergences, and so that's the first thing that will come into my head. And then if we go down 105.80 or something, and then there's like a daily divergence there or whatever,
Exactly.
I'll
Yep.
be going back on that long side again. But then
Yep.
obviously if the divergences start disappearing, and
Yep.
then I'm looking at things closing outside of bands, like on like the monthly or uh, and stuff
Yep.
like that. Then I'm going to start. The picture's going to start changing. I mean, for instance,
Yes.
on the monthly, that came. Well, yeah, you can see now it's sort of like almost like a spinning top candle. But I mean, when that was down at 106, that was making me cringe. I was thinking, oh, I'm completely wrong on this. But then
Yep.
uh, I was thinking, this not. I didn't want to see that down there. But we don't close until the end of today, which is currently the 30th of April.
We
And
don't close until the big owl sings.
that's
That's the
very
expression.
right. That's correct. And so fingers crossed. I mean, if we don't come off low today, we stay in the 107s. Well, then it does look like it is gonna close still within those bands. All right. If anything, it probably still come down lower, won't it? But I was like, I mean, for instance, we've just on today, we've just had this employment cost index that come out, which has made the currency sell off a bit. But I mean,
Yep.
I always then whenever news comes out and this against what I want, I'm always sticking alerts and stuff up at like the height at the where that news come out, and then I like to sort of
Yeah.
see them um
Take it out.
that taken out. And so I don't just think oh, it's all over. I mean, all right, a lot of the time you see news coming out in the opposite direction, saying, "Oh, here we go again." But then, and then to me, it's more of a case I'm just sort of waiting for it to. be taken back out again.
I think yes, exactly. It's I think psychologically, as far as market psychology is concerned, I think it's always fascinating when a news bar gets taken out,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
the news bar ignites price, and if price then comes back out, sometimes on the same day, or within a few days, or even a week or two, and it eradicates that, then I think that's saying something normally.
Yeah, that's it. I got things everywhere, like higher PCE, higher employment cost
Mm,
things, and everywhere. And
mm.
uh,
So
but
I do think it's interesting what you said, because yeah, we've been watching this as to, okay, if the euro was to roll over, I think if it had done a shallow retracement, we wouldn't have obviously been on for divergence. So the irony is that if the euro does roll over now, considering it's been, it's had, week and a half off the lows or so,
mm,
it by the time we roll over now, even if it comes over in a space of 2 or 3 days, that would, as you quite rightly say, potentially set itself up for a divergence, because it would
mm,
obviously need, I have to say potentially, because it needs to come
yeah,
down
yeah,
and then close back up. So
yeah.
yes, it would have that. So nothing really changes, does
And
it?
and,
Yeah,
and
we
then,
could make some money on the short side,
but I
but
mean, with
you know,
me being me, even if that 12 hour, sorry, that daily one disappeared, then because I'm still sort of itching to get on that long side, I'd look at other time frames. I mean, for instance, there's a 12 hour, there'd be a probably more likely be a 12 hour divergence than a daily divergence,
mm,
eyeballing it. And so I'd then have a look at that. And if they're so, even if that daily had just gone, but then I saw that 12-hour
yeah,
divergence, then I think I would then use that excuse then, and I'd be looking for every sort of excuse possible to sort of get in. All right, eventually I'm gonna have to say, look, I'm wrong. And then also, I mean, like the other week, there was all these good those there was those wonderful moves to the downside. And perhaps I'm too stubborn sometimes because I didn't get in on any of that. And whereas if I was flat and there was all that going on, perhaps maybe I would have tried to get in on the short side. But just the fact that I was still in position, stuff like that, it was more a case of I was just, although I could see what was happening, and trading's not all about hope, but it's I just wanted to stay on the long side, and even though I was stopped out of those positions, but is
that's
what it
fair
is.
enough. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um, that is more than fair enough. And so I think something you said earlier on is, we are all different. And so not every trader is going to want to trade how you trade like that.
yeah,
You are trading according to your personality.
yeah.
That's what suits you, much like what suits me. Very similar to what you do. I've got overall analysis, and I want to stay with that. I concede, but
Mm,
like you said, yes, the capacity that could it bounce back down within the quarterly bands. If we go back to the quarterly and hit the lower band, which it hasn't actually done as yet.
yeah,
Likewise with cable, yeah, there's these things that could still happen, but we still keep an eye out for those patterns that may materialize on the long side,
yeah,
and will stubbornly trade those,
yeah.
when an average trader might say, no, no, I'm not doing that anymore, I've just had 2 stop outs.
Yeah,
And you're like, oh no, I'll take 10,
yeah,
15, give
yeah.
me 20.
I mean, the thing is you can be picking away at all this stuff for so long. Sometimes you do even question it yourself. You think, "Am I daft or something?"
Yeah, yeah,
Is this
yeah,
really the best way forward? And so, but that's why I love doing trading like that. That is more sort of my personality, doing things like that. But then I will do the odd other trade as well, just to and then all right. I'm not saying that I'm necessarily definitely gonna go and hit my target with it, but I like to do the odd other little one, but as I say, only if it jumps out at me. I never really um sort of go hunting for trades anymore. But
yes, yeah, yeah,
sometimes, it's just like someone in the room may say
yeah,
something, and then all of a sudden it just like brings your attention to it a bit, and then
definitely.
then you start, and then even if it that they haven't said a certain thing, then you might notice things with it, or then you might think, oh, actually. I mean, for instance, I don't know, someone might want to get in at a certain point, but then I might look at it and I'm still interested in that same market, but then I might be looking at it a different to get in at a different level or have my stops at a different level. But
Mm.
it does make me smile. I mean, I often find that often I'll go into a trade and I then a day or two later I'll hear who the other people it's funny how we often are all looking at a similar sort of thing and uh, the we all seem to be singing off the same hymn sheet really with some of these markets and then
Well, I
looking at
think,
the same sort of areas.
yeah, I mean, at the end of the day,
Mm.
many of us are using the same tools.
Yeah,
Although we
yeah,
might have our own personality, stamped on top of that. But if I listen to yourself and what you're looking at, or Shelley, or Beamer, especially, and
mm,
even Mav, even though he's got a different level of experience, he'll still be looking at and identified things like divergences and whatnot as well.
yeah,
So we're all a lot of the time looking at very similar things.
yeah,
So by
yeah,
default, it's going to happen. It's just a case of how some people deal with these things versus others, and some people want to trade a bit more in and out, and
yeah,
just say, do you know what, I'm just going to treat this as a for what it is, this trade, or so. And that's what I love about it. I think it's so important that traders, it takes time, as you know, to know who you are as a trader, what you
yeah,
actually do. Like, people will learn techniques and stuff they don't really know. It does take time. You have to keep trading to then find out who you really are as a trader and what suits you, like you've just said, with your trading personality, and what you prefer to do.
yeah. That's it. I mean, it's great that being sort of like in this community, you can learn all the different things. But like you say, you just find your own sort of trade and personality. It's not that one way is right, one way is wrong. It's just what's suited to you. And I think you should always do what is suited to you, but just be sensible with it.
Well, I mean, a classic example is, like you've said,
Mm.
earlier on, not everyone has to try and hold on for
No,
as
definitely
long
not.
as you might hold on, or as I might hold on, because
No.
again, that at that you could have someone who's earlier on in their trading. They might only
Yeah,
be 6 months, a year into their trading, let's say. And as you know, holding on is one of the hardest things you can do.
yeah,
Holding on, adding, holding, adding out. And for someone who's newer to the whole arena of trading, that's really challenging. It's challenging as it is anyway, but it's really challenging for them. So for them, they might have to say, do you know what? I'm not gonna do that whole holding on to the same degree, but I will be banking my trades as I go along. Maybe I'll hold on to a little bit, but I will be banking and all of that. And that is knowing thyself, as I often
yeah,
say. And also added to that, as time goes by, that person will then evolve. And as
yeah.
their experience grows,
Mm.
that type of thing might be something that in a year's time or whatever, that they're now ready for it. But not everyone's always ready at that moment in time.
No, that's right. I mean, when I first started trading, if you can call it that, I just purely day traded, and I was quite happy doing that day trading. Apart from the fact I was losing all that money when I was doing it, but that was not due to it being a day trade. It was just down to obviously how I was when I started trading. But as time went on, I started doing less and less day trades, and and almost feel when I do it, if I do a day trade, I'm almost feeling like I'm not doing my job properly, and that's just me personally. I'm not saying that people that day trade don't do their job properly, but what I mean by that is, um, it all just felt a bit too sort of quick, like I hadn't done my analysis properly because I'm used to doing sort of swing trading and longer term swing trades where my and that there's so much that goes into the analysis. If all of a
Mm,
sudden I'm just looking and seeing a quick little
pattern.
setup somewhere, I just
Mm,
think then if I have say I get stopped out, then I'm thinking, did I really do my analysis properly? All right, it's just one of those things. You're 50-50 getting stopped out. But then I sort of question myself. Whereas if it's something I've looked at for a longer period of time, um, I'm sort of I accept it, being stopped out and stuff like that. And I feel that I've done everything properly. And it's just, as I say, me just trying to hook up on things a lot of the time. Or
Yeah.
if it's a shorter term trade, well, it's just one of those things, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. And uh, yeah, not to say anything against the people who enjoy their intraday trading, because quite a few
Oh
of our
no,
members do.
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah,
again, what you're saying, like I say, it's just not who you are as a trader anymore. It feels empty in a way. Whereas for others, they find it really fulfilling. I
yeah.
feel it feels empty to me, like you've just said, to literally just have to, oh, okay, there's a setup here, and there'll always be a few bits and pieces, but it doesn't,
Mm.
it doesn't feel like it has quite that same depth to it. And but again, to someone else, that's here nor there. They're not in it for that.
No, no, no. Yeah.
So but
Well,
that's
as I
the
say,
beauty of,
well, that's it.
yeah.
It's nice how that you've got so many people that do things all so differently. And as I say, there's nothing wrong with day trade and nothing wrong with swing trade. And as I say, it's just how we, we all personally do things. And it's
Yeah.
nice that we can all do things. And it's not to say I wouldn't ever do a day trade, because as I say, I don't. If all of a sudden and come halfway through this year, there was all these opportunities, and it seemed more sensible for me to be doing day trading than swing
Yeah.
trading for whatever reason, I
Yeah.
would day trade.
Yeah.
So that's why I don't like to say I definitely do this and that, because things always change. But
Well, what if your broker said, I'm sorry, but we're no longer allowing you to hold positions overnight? Ah, we'd have to dust off our day trading hats, wouldn't
oh
we?
no, I have to go back to work. uh,
So yeah,
uh,
but
no,
yeah,
you would, wouldn't you? Yeah, but
yeah,
I
exactly. We
think. I mean,
adapt. Yeah.
as that sort of example, though, I think in I would have to completely downsize everything I did to
Yeah.
sort of edge me back into it. Because I think the thing don't like about day trading as much these days, obviously because I trade sort of with with larger amounts. If all of a sudden I've been stopped out in 2 minutes,
It's
I feel
just,
cheated.
yeah, yeah.
And I shouldn't feel like that. Whereas if I've gone into a swing trade and after a few days or something I've been stopped out,
It's not the same.
I don't
No.
feel as bad. But yeah, I do. And then I start question. I'm more like to question myself. So yeah, if I had to day trade, I think I would start off completely reducing my position sizes to then gradually get myself back into it again. Because if I just went full on straight into
100%.
it, I think I would mentally struggle with it, and I'd be very hard on myself.
Well, Maverick always says that, with day trading, he will always trade smaller size in
Mm,
relative terms to his swing trading. And I think that is you've hit a real salient point there. You get people wanting to day trade, risking, let's say, 1% per trade or whatever.
yeah.
And if you're stopped out after, like you quite rightly say, after 2 minutes,
Uh,
wow, it doesn't feel like you've earned it, at least.
yeah. Well,
And it's a lot.
well,
And yeah.
Well, the thing is, I mean, when I had £1,000 in my account and then 1% was like £10, I could sort of tolerate it.
Mm,
But then, as it gets bigger, then it does feel like a lot goes very quickly. And I mean, some people might not be bothered by that at all, but it's just
mm.
something that as I say, that's why I'm better off swing trading for the moment. But
Yeah. And I think that, yeah, each to their own.
yeah,
Trade according to your personality. If you don't know what your trading personality is yet, that's fine, because that's all part
mm,
of the learning experiences. It only comes with experience that you find
yeah.
more and more with more trades under your belt, as the months go by, um, that you start to find what you do prefer and what you don't prefer. So it's
Mm.
just a
I,
constantly evolving thing.
I think it's very easy for people to that they might say, right, okay, uh I prefer swing trade or whatever. But then they go into a drawdown. Then they question themselves, thinking, perhaps I should be doing day trade and this isn't working out. Or they go and then they do a load of do some day trade, and then they go into a drawdown at some point of that, and they think, no, perhaps I should be swing trading. So you've got to sort of, obviously you
Mm,
find where you need to be, but you can't just let every drawdown make you
no.
want to change the way you do things, because it's all that faffing about. That's what will mess things up for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's a bit like, for instance, if you were trying to do some back testing or something, and were looking at what sort of risk to rewards you might need and your win rates and what have you. If all you're doing is pulling your trades out early all the time, yeah, you might have an 80% win rate for all you know, but then it's just going to completely mess up your results, because if you're then risking £10 and coming out after £3 every time, yeah, you might have an 80% win rate, but then it's going to mess it all up because you're not sort of sticking you know, running your trades to your targets and stuff. So you have to be quite sort of honest with all this stuff as well. And it's just about sort of having a process and sticking to it, which is easier said than done, but it's a very important thing that you must do. It's
Well, I think along this whole subject of evolving, you're
mm,
right. You don't just jump from one to another, one style to another. It has to be a gradual process, because you don't, otherwise you're just jumping around, and like,
uh,
you could be a strategy jumper. It's the same thing.
yeah,
And so it's small tweaks, over time. And if you allow time, then
mm,
it tends to work out a little bit better that way than trying to force something.
yeah, yeah. I mean, if I just look back at my the best periods I've ever had with trading, I think it's just when I've done things in the most sort of laid back manner. I know that might sound silly, but it has been. And it was sort of when I had a full-time job, and I did swing trading, and I didn't push myself into anything. And that's when things sort of tended to really sort of work out for me. But when any times I've been trying to worrying, oh, I need to make this or need to make that. That's when things start going wrong.
It's
You can't
true. Yeah.
shouldn't push yourself, because, and this is why, like when I started full time trading, how I struggled
Yes.
mentally to do it, because I mean, even after that I started. And then after 3 months, I'd got nowhere. I think I was actually down. And then I'm there thinking, oh no, I'm going to have to go back to work and
Mm,
I can't do this. And then I was being hard on myself. Then it went from me being hard on myself to being too overconfident, because I had a good run over the next few months. And then I was and then all this stuff, it was all down to money, either worrying or then thinking, oh, you've done so well, and you just weren't focusing. I just wasn't focusing on the actual charts and the trades itself. It was more turning into a money type thing, and it's so important that you don't sort of start thinking like that. It, it will really make life difficult for you, and it's a sort of an ugly thing to do, but it's an easy thing to start doing.
I think another thing that people associate with full-time trading is day trading. It's
Yeah,
such a, and I know we're nearly out of time. I'm very conscious of your time. You've
yeah,
got to
it's
go
all
and
right.
pick
It's
up
all
the
right.
kids up. But there's this association that if you're going to be a full-time trader, you day trade, and
Mm,
you don't have to, as you
no.
are living proof of that.
Well, this is it. Now, when I started, I was doing swing trades. Maybe, probably, they weren't like really long term ones. They were just like your normal type of swing trades. But I was doing a reasonable amount of trading, I suppose. But then, when I wasn't doing quite as much, then I was starting to think, this isn't right. I've got to be doing something, and I felt. It felt wrong. It felt like I should be clicking a button, and 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 I really struggled with that, and that's
Mm,
why I then thought, well, what if I do some semi swings? And I remember saying that I was going to
yep.
do that just to sort of satisfy my need to do something. And then I did say, when I was on about that even if I got to the end of the year and I made nothing, and it might have just satisfied my need to do something. But then
Mhm.
I started doing that kind of thing for a bit, but then I gradually drifted away from it, and then I realized, well, no, I don't need to be doing this kind of thing all the time. We'll always it's so easy to make yourself believe that you need to, but you don't need to be doing that. And as I say, and then I started adapting to it a lot more.
Mm.
But it's just when you start something new, whatever that is in life, it's easy to be questioning yourself, think, am I doing it right? And surely this
Even
isn't
for
right.
you.
And
Well, yet again, we're going to need to draw this to an end. So I'm trying to come up with a summary here. But yet again, what you've just said, even with yourself after all the years that you've been trading, when you first went full time, um, again, it's that one element, time.
yeah,
Time. Always it comes back to allowing yourself to, the more pressure you put on yourself from a I've got to achieve this in this amount of time, and I'm talking
yeah,
globally here to any trader, then if you can let loose of the shackles in that regard and think of it all, with the benefit of a higher, longer period of time ahead of you, then you're better served. Unfortunately, lots of people will end up having to put pressure on themselves to achieve something or whatever. But
yeah,
the more that people have time, like you did, you had a new experience there and you had to find your feet. And the only thing that really helped you, I say the only thing, but one of the major things was over time, it happened for you. But if you'd have just got 3 months down the line and thought, oh, this is not going to work, well, you'd be, you know,
well, a
working
statistic,
somewhere at
yeah.
the moment. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
to be honest, though, it's still something that goes through my head, and I know that I'm not in a position. I can't just go and have multiple losing years and sit
No,
back
no,
and worry
no.
about it. And knowing that,
Yeah.
these things happen, and so I've still got that hanging over me.
Mm,
But I try not to. At the end of the day, whatever happens, happens. But as I say, touch wood so far, I'm almost 3 years into it and still going.
yeah,
So fingers crossed. But I don't like
yeah.
to be cocky just because I might have had a couple of all right years or anything. You don't know what's going to happen one year to the next,
No,
and
no.
anything could happen. But it is what it is, isn't it? And fingers crossed.
It so is. And on that note, Big Al, I'm going to have to let you go because I've got to jump back into the trading room myself now. Thanks ever so much for doing this chat and doing it as a recording. It just makes for a lovely little extra bonus session whilst I'm away over this week. We'll probably play this twice. Some different people can watch it.
Okay, my
And
pleasure.
yeah, thanks for all your help and assistance and wisdom there in the trading room.
That's okay. Well, it's lovely chatting to you.
Great stuff.
All right.
Speak to you soon.
Cheers then. Bye.
Bye.
Right.